So this is what we've got lined up for this morning. So we'll be running through till 11 o'clock. We'll finish by then, although we'll hang on if anybody wants to do a bit of networking after then. We've got some introductions between now and about 9:30. Just from me now. We'll go through a few things on the theme of today. Then we've got Dave Perrigo and David Lynes are going to give a short presentation. The theme this month is around cash flow, so I picked the two Davids there especially to give their insights into things I know that they're doing. Then we're going to do the breakout sessions, and this is an opportunity, as I say, to get to know each other a little bit more in depth. Essentially, it's around uncovering opportunities for collaboration. So that's essentially what those spotlights are about, and they're facilitated. So we've got some great people that will facilitate those breakout sessions as well, and they'll essentially be Mel and Louise and Dave Perrigo and David Lynes will facilitate those, with the idea of understanding a bit more about what you do and uncovering some opportunities potentially for collaboration. Then we'll return for a wrap up and any key takeaways and closing remarks. So that's essentially what we've got lined up for the next couple of hours, or just a bit under now. In terms of online etiquette, I think we all familiar enough with Zoom now, probably not to need to know when to go on to mute and when not to. Do use the chat room. Do remember the confidentiality side of things, especially when you're in those breakouts. The idea is that you do come up with things that you'd like help with. That's part of it as well. So don't spend all the time just chatting about what you do. Leave yourself open to be challenged, but also, if you're listening, challenge other people. See if we can throw some challenges at people. But so be prepared to challenge and be challenged. Do be open. Look for takeaways. Try to avoid using the time just to sell. That's not really what this is about. It's not about selling your wares. It's about looking for opportunities where you can help each other. And if you do, when we go into the breakout rooms, if you do for whatever reason have to leave, please pop back to the main room and let Caroline know, just so that we don't end up with one room that's only got one or two people in it or something like that. Okay, that's all that's about. What is ScaleUp Club about? Well, essentially it's around providing opportunities to meet, to share, to collaborate and learn. That's what we're doing. We've done the who's in the room. Many of you will be familiar with the way that we talk about the scale-up journey as a series of pillars, stepping stones. It's not a straight line journey or even a bit of a wiggly journey. And these 4 pillars of strategy, people, execution, and cash that we need to get right at every stage of our scale-up if we want to be successful. And what we do with ScaleUp Club, one of the things we do is we look at one of those pillars and a particular concept, thought, idea, tool, framework, whatever, from one of those pillars each month, with the aim that we're providing a bit of food for thought. That's really what it is, that we need to be thinking about some of these areas. So every month there's something a little bit new to think about. This month, as indeed last month, we focused on cash. We've had a little while without focus on the cash. We know how important it is, and we're going to continue that theme. Within the way that we work, we have 2 main areas within cash that we look at. One is the cash acceleration. So how do we drive and accelerate the cash within the business? But the other is driving profitable growth, and you can see some of the things that we look at within there. So last month we looked at the cash conversion cycle in the cash acceleration stream. This month we're going to look a little bit more at the cash flow and budget forecasts. We touched upon it a little bit last time as well, but we're going to look a little bit more detail within those. Now, why is cash flow forecasting important? Well, I think we all know, really, and I think it's something that we probably all do to one degree or another. But one of the reasons is what we looked at last time, is that the timing of the money coming in, timing of the cash coming in, is not necessarily as clear as we would like it, and it's certainly not exactly the same as we would have on our profit and loss. And we know that there are the various cycles that add up to be this whole cash conversion cycle. So if we're not very efficient, or we're spending a long time in the sales cycle, then we know we're investing money from that point that we start talking to the customer, and the longer that cycle is, the harder it is going to be for us to grow, because we know that we're going to have an increasing hole the faster that we grow. And that's particularly what happens when we've got fast growth coming. So without forecasting a company's cash flow, it would be almost impossible to estimate really how much cash your business is going to have at any one time, what your cash needs are going to be looking further forward, and whether you're going to need to take on more investment or whatever you may need to do. So there is that difference between the profit and the cash, and that's what that's about. So the profit and loss, the P&L, is not the whole picture. There's just some of the things there that that are not included in your P&L necessarily. And if you don't monitor your cash flow really carefully, particularly in times of a crisis or rapid change, then it can be almost impossible to make informed business decisions, and planning for change and how you can enable business growth becomes difficult. We do occasionally get people that say, why do I need to track my forecast against budgets? What's the point? Because it's already happened. What can I do about it if we're at the end of the month and we didn't quite hit it? Well, I think most of us probably would realize that it's quite the opposite. It's really important that we do that so that we get a better understanding of why we might not be hitting particular targets, where we might be overspending in certain areas, or even actually it might be the other way around. But the whole point is that we're enabling the business then to keep on track of what's going on, to implement changes, create efficiencies, and to improve. So some of the questions we need to be asking ourselves each month might be some of these. If we didn't achieve the sales, why was that? Are there some customers buying less from us than we would? And there's a few other questions there. But essentially what we want to be doing is, with that cash flow forecast, is looking at it, comparing it against what we expected, what the actual has been against what we expected, and then asking ourselves, why are there any differences? And the better we get at doing that, or the more frequently that we do that, the better we will get at it and end up with having really very accurate cash flow forecasts. A few quick mistakes that people make. It's very easy to set unrealistic sales projections. These are not for our vanity sales projections. These are what we really want. So we want to set those realistically. It's quite easy to underestimate costs, and it's a common mistake that people make, missing something out maybe. But again, the more often that we do it, the more we're going to end up, some of those things that we pay once a year, we're going to forget, and all of a sudden they're going to hit us. But once that's happened, hopefully we put it in and make sure we don't forget it next time around. A lot of people create a budget and then ignore it. The whole point of budgets really is we stick to it. And if the sales and budgets, let's say we've got a marketing spend, if our sales drop and the marketing spend was based on a certain sales level, then we obviously need to think about reducing our budget. Or actually, in the case of marketing, maybe we would take the opposite view. But we need to make sure that we stick to the budgets where possible, and that we adapt and think about it each month, whether we're on track or whether we need to be changing. Sticking our head in the sand and ignoring that cash flow is a mistake that people make. Overcomplicating it, and I know Dave Perrigo in a minute will put up a couple of suggestions as possibilities of how to do your cash flow. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Depending on the size of the business, it doesn't have to be hugely complicated. But so keep it simple. What works for your business. Taxes are something that can often be forgotten, and the timing of those, and not spending enough time on it. So here's a couple of tips. Make sure that we do compare the budget to actual results. Don't forget about some of the expenditure that may not be in. I've listed some of those things. So loans or capital repayments, things like that won't be in your P&L. Think about your assumptions carefully. Don't use too broad brush approach. It is tempting sometimes to press the button on zero and generate a cash flow forecast, but not give it enough thought, and it won't necessarily have all of those assumptions within there. Review and forecast over a period of time and check carefully. Do the figures start to look unrealistic? So have a look at that forecast. And if you're suddenly forecasting that you're having huge amounts of cash in your business, then maybe that's right, but double check it. And always compare your budgets with actuals on a line by line basis on a timely measure. So that's all I wanted to say on cash flow. That what I'm going to do now is to hand over to Dave Perrigo of Perrigo Consultants. And he's going to go through a few thoughts from his point of view as somebody that's working closely with a number of business owners on exactly this, as to how to implement good cash flow forecasting within their businesses. So Dave, over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. That's great. Thanks. So a bit of background, guys. So we're based in ScaleUp 7. There's 10 of us. We've been going about 10 years now, and we've always predominantly advised clients on reducing their tax bills legitimately and honestly to make sure they're taking advantage of everything that's available to them. Over the last 6 months, or beyond that really, since the pandemic's hit really, it's all been about cash flow, making sure our clients are fit and robust for the next 12 months, beyond, who knows, but also making sure they know where they're heading. And all the cash flow forecast is very simply a sat navigation tool. So we're going through more turbulence now than probably arguably ever, more twists and turns, more U-turns from the government. And it's just making sure that we know where we're at. As some of the attendees alluded to, I think we've had some businesses that have just done remarkably well off the back of this. Some have struggled and some have trouble just treading water, I guess, in that respect. But all of them have to kind of negotiate and navigate their cash flow forecasting. So there's been an amount of credit that's been offered by the government. I think that the government have done a fantastic job economically. Rishi's done a superb job in terms of giving enough cash out for businesses to be able to survive and push forward the C-bills, furlough payments, bounce back loans, etc. But I suppose that's the plus side. And the negatives are, come Q1 next year, they all need repaying. So most businesses want to know where they're at, where they're heading, and we've got 450 clients, and every client has a cash flow forecast in place to make sure they know where they're going to be next year and beyond. Really, some do 5-year forecasts, some do 2 or 3, but it's just making sure they know where they're going to head, and that obviously changes day by day, week by week. But it's just nice to know where you're looking, where you're heading towards. And as Kevin said, I think it can be overcomplicated, cash flow forecasts. There's plenty of things out there that you can look at. I mean, Sam will know, we've got some good accountants on the call. Xero is a fantastic bit of software, and we predominantly use that because it's probably the best, well, it is in fact the best product out there in terms of managing your account software, projecting forward. There's free trials out there, so just trial it. There's no obligation, just suck it and see. But the good thing about Xero is it's a car chassis, if you like, and off the back of that car chassis, you can add different things to it. And the most important thing we found over the last 6 months is something called Fluidly. So Fluidly is an app that links into Xero, and essentially gives you an automated cash flow forecast of where you're going to be. It looks at things like VAT repayments, loan repayments, and you can also do what-if scenarios. So you might decide that you're going to lay somebody off, recruit somebody, increase your sales prices potentially, move office, whatever it might be. You can do what-if scenarios. You can see visually whatever you do, what impact that has on your cash flow and profitability, and you can see then where that takes you the next 12 months and beyond. So very, very good very good tool. We offer that free of charge to all our clients. Anybody on this call who's interested, just drop Kevin or I a note, and I'll arrange that for you. No ties, no problems. Just a free use of that if that helps you out at all. That'd be good if you need to use that. And also the biggest thing most clients have is cash flow, getting cash flow from their clients, customers. Credit control has always been a bit of a nightmare, but that whole process, as far as I'm aware now, is automated as much as possible. And there's a great app out there, plenty of others, but gocardless.com, and essentially that pulls in your customer payments on an automatic basis month on month. There's a little bit of a cost to it, it's not massive. So to put in £5,000 worth of cash, it costs about £7, and £1,000 worth of cash from your clients, £4, so not massively expensive. And you won't believe the amount of admin it frees up. Various other apps out there, chaser.com, that essentially pulls in your cash flow automatically from a credit control bureau, an agency. So all of those off the back of Xero are fantastic ways to get certainty on your cash flow, pull it in faster, and give you that kind of promotion, if you like, in terms of cash flow. But I do appreciate a lot of our clients don't use technology that much because they're either too small, or they haven't embraced it because they're a little bit scared of it. Not a problem. We've prepared a series of cash flow forecasting models over the last 6 months. So they range from being a 5-year forecast, an integrated profit and loss account model for 2 years, or exceptionally simple cash flow. So again, If you need any copies of those, or it'd help you out in any shape or form for your customers, your suppliers, let me know and I'll get those across to you. No problems, no charge. That's about it for me, Kevin. Thank you.
Perfect. That's super, Dave. Thank you very much. And yeah, I encourage you to get in touch with Dave if you think that would be useful to have those templates or have any further conversations with Dave about that. So thank you. And now I've asked David Lynes, as a business that we've been working with a number of years, and I know that they have gone on a journey, if you like, in all sorts of ways, but including with the way that they do cash flow forecast and budgeting. So, David, if I can hand over to you, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So yeah, no slides from me, but I guess a bit of an explanation of what we do. So we've grown from around 4 or 5 employees to 27 now. So that's mainly been in the last kind of 15 to 18 months. So I think looking at some of the things that we do, particularly from a cash and a P&L point of view, I guess I wish I'd done that earlier. But obviously sort of growing the kind of staff numbers, having investment, you've got to have a certain level of kind of paperwork, so to speak, but actually there's huge value from that. So, in essence, what we do is we have as Dave Perrigo has mentioned, sort of an integrated set of P&L, balance sheet, management accounts that we are essentially up to date. They're live now. So on a daily basis, we've got a P&L and management accounts rolling. And that gives us kind of a really granular level of detail. So they're all interlinked. They are Excel spreadsheets. So we don't use Xero, we use Sage, but fundamentally that is still being plugged into Sage. We've still got purchases and sales going through Sage. We then export that on a daily basis into our set of kind of spreadsheets. And what we're able to do then is on a daily basis see exactly where we're at from a product line point of view. So we can see what our sales are doing at a very granular level. So that helps us then forecast. So at a product line point of view, we've got about 12 different products we sell in essence. Some of those are recurring. Some of those are kind of ad hoc projects and ad hoc sort of costs. So forecasting can be a bit tricky particularly on the ad hoc pieces. But by splitting it down by product line, we're then able to forecast really accurately and see those variances really accurately. So every month we can see product line variances, which then help us then forecast forward. And that then allows us to target salespeople and be very specific about those targets. And then because we've tracked cost very closely, we've then got a cost of goods set of lines that are very sort of accurate, and our overheads. So give or take probably £500 variance each month, we are forecasting very accurately sort of what our cost of goods are going to be and also our sort of overheads. So that again gives us a kind of a break-even point. We know if we dip sales revenue for a reason of COVID, and we did drop some revenue then. We know where our break-even is and those sorts of aspects. On the back of that, what we've also got is, that's all great, the forecasts are there, and we've got forecasted probably 3 years. However, we didn't during COVID forecast because we just didn't know. So we revised all those forecasts, essentially just took them out because we didn't know what was going to happen. And then we've kind of sort of forecast that forward now there's a bit more sort of certainty. But what we've got on the back of that is our balance sheets, and then we've also got a split of how do we receive money from our customers. So Go Cardless is a tool we use, so Dave mentioned that. 40% of our customers are on direct debit, and that does take out a huge amount of paperwork, particularly for those smaller clients. But we also know our age debtor days, and we target that and we KPI that. And every month we target to try and reduce that in some way. Because again, the faster we can get cash in, the more that's in the bank. But we're also able to see when, we had sort of VAT deferment. There was a scheme there to defer, VAT payment. So we've got that kind of banked and ready. But that did affect cash flow in a positive way. Also, we know, which customers pay directly into our bank and when they should happen. And so we've got, like I say, from a cash point of view, a forecast of what that's going to look like. And we know what that's going to generally look like in the next 60 days or so, assuming that those customers do make those payments based on track record. and we're looking at history. So during COVID, cash did slow up a bit, particularly sort of March. I think we saw a slow up, but we could see it, and we did something about it, and just helped and supported clients. So like I say, we focus on that cash piece. It's great having a forecast, great having a P&L, and that's historical. But cash in the bank is for us kind of, I guess, the most important piece. But like I say, we're also able to see, when PAYE should be paid in each calendar month, when VAT's due. Also, if we're going to receive money from an R&D, refund point of view, we know, and we forecasted that. We roughly know what that VAT repayment's going to be because of the kind of type of activities we have. So that has another positive effect on cash flow. So, and over the kind of years, we've kind of got to a position where we've got sort of roughly, I don't know, 5 months worth of working capital banked, and they're secure. But we fundamentally know what our costs are going to be and what our payroll is going to be, and we know how much it's going to cost to employ somebody and onboard them and all those sorts of pieces. So the forecasting, right from the sales line all the way through to the cost line, gives us that really clear detail. If we want to bring on 5 new staff members, give or take £100 variance, we know how much that's going to cost us. So the forecasting piece, the P&L, and all these kind of interlinked activities give us that detail, and fundamentally the ability to make that decision and make it fast. I don't have to wait for some information to come back from the FD. We can access that information and we can make those decisions. Particularly during COVID, that was a really key part. We were able to make some decisions and react pretty quickly. There are other bits in there. We know, for example, our split of different currencies. We get GBP obviously, but we get euros and we get Swiss francs and US dollars. So we know what that split looks like as well. So I guess where we've got to is a pretty complex set of kind of spreadsheets and systems. However, if you can forecast and know what your product sales look like and elements like that, as well as your costs and your overheads, and you're actively looking at it and monitoring it and get it as real time as possible, that's a really good place to be in. We've then gone a few steps further in terms of targeting bank receipts, making sure we get customer payments in. We're also we know when we're going to make payments, so that's a position we're in now, but we never used to be. So yeah, it's an evolution of kind of growing those kind of systems, living by it, and then having to build a commentary for each board meeting. And we discuss the pros and the cons, the ups and the downs.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, David. So we've got a couple of minutes for any questions for either Dave or David, if anybody's got any, before we think about the breakout rooms. Anybody got any immediate questions? I don't think so. Nobody's waving their head. So you've obviously done a fantastic job there, both of you. So how long do you forecast out, did you say, David?
So we've got about sort of 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
We stopped forecasting during COVID. We just didn't know. We had no idea. So I don't think anybody did. So we essentially scrapped those forecast numbers and we just went with actuals. We did the best we possibly could. We still knew where we dropped revenue, where our costs also dropped. We didn't have to furlough anybody. All our staff costs were the same. We've not suffered as much as other companies have. We're not necessarily an e-commerce business either that's absolutely flying at the moment. So we're somewhere in between. The care sector's pretty buoyant. However, they had some challenges. So
and that's monthly, but do you do a weekly for a shorter period?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No, we do monthly. Monthly.
Okay, very good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go into our breakout rooms. So we're going to have essentially about an hour. So we'll be back in here about 9:40, not 9:40, 10:40 to wrap up. That would be a very quick breakout session, so we were going to do that. And they're going to be facilitated by Dave Perrigo, David Lynes, and by Melanie Hawkett. And I think, as I say, it's essentially about how can we help each other. All right, that's really what it's about. But here's some questions to think about if you want to think about the cash flow side of things within the breakouts. You don't have to, but if you do, David was there talking about identifying, and he focuses on the debtor days and things, but I know they also identify a cash flow initiative each quarter that they focus on to try and improve, because it's that constant improvement aspect. It's not one of those things that you get right once and then leave it. You've got to keep looking at it. Do you actually have a cash flow forecast, and do you use it for the next 90 days? Do you double check to make sure things look realistic? Have you included everything that should be included? And do you compare actuals line by line? So if you want to build on that theme within your breakouts, then fantastic. But as I say, the main aim is for you to get to know each other a little bit more. So a very quick update would be from you as to who you are and what you do would be great. If you've got a particular topic or challenge that you'd like the rest of the group to help you with, then outline that. But don't spend you'll have roughly 10 minutes each. Don't spend all of your 10 minutes doing that. Try and give yourself a quick little update within 2 or 3 minutes, and then allow time for questions. And that's when you'll find that you get the most insights into each other, and the most takeaways is when you allow, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat, but you allow people to challenge you and ask you questions rather than you just telling people what you do. So we're going to open up those breakout rooms now. If the chairs can manage the time so that everybody gets their time and that we're back by 10:40, that would be fantastic. So Caroline, are we ready now with the breakout rooms?